Chapter 10. The $50 million Taylor Swift lawsuit. An hour after I had failed to kill myself, my new acquaintance and I sat in a booth at a buffet. Walter was a lawyer who had been actively following my case. Apparently, he had tried messaging me on social media, but since every other message in my Facebook inbox consisted of threatening and harassing messages from strangers, I never checked my inbox. Walter actually agreed with my lawsuit and agreed that the judge was biased and that John Smith was a dirtbag. I finally felt vindicated and understood. Don't try killing yourself again, but I totally understand why you tried doing it, Walter said as we both ate extra helpings of breakfast food. There are some very vicious people after you. They're the insane ones, not you. Are you still thinking of filing that federal lawsuit that was mentioned on the news? I kind of said that in the heat of the moment, I explained hesitantly to Walter. You should do it, I'll help you, Walter encouraged. Imagine if the jury awarded you half of Taylor's net worth, you would be so rich. Walter had dollar signs in his eyes. He seemed to be after some of Taylor's money too. I'd never ever wanted any of her money. I'd only wanted fairness. To be honest, I didn't really know what I wanted. Days later, I met up with Walter in his humble office located on the 4th floor of a building in downtown Salt Lake City. A Juris Doctorate degree hung on his wall, identifying himself as a true and blue, through and through lawyer. So we wouldn't be able to sue her for slander, as she's protected by a thing called the litigation privilege, which is some bullshit thing that says you can lie about whatever, and you're protected because it's all a part of the legal process, Walter told me. But I really like your failure to warn argument. That's where I see us prevailing. While I was all on board with Walter's plan, I couldn't tell if he was acting in my best interest or if he simply wanted his hands in the cookie jar, so to speak. It made me uneasy because money was far from what I wanted. I only wanted Taylor to be held accountable for her negligent actions. With fervent enthusiasm, Walter spoke of how we could bankrupt Taylor Swift and derail her career. It was like he savoured what he was saying, enjoying the thought of destroying Taylor Swift. I still had a soft spot in my heart for her, and I didn't want to hurt her. I only wanted her to have her eyes open and swallow the bitter truth and accept what she did to me. In a matter of minutes, legal papers were printed out. Walter placed a pen on the papers in front of me for me to sign. Mr. Greer, I'll have you read and sign. I'm also going to require a $500 retainer, Walter explained with a smile. I was in a deep thought as I studied our contract. Can I think over this? I asked. Sure, Walter said very politely. Metaphorically, I was stuck between a rock and a hard place. If I signed the engagement agreement, Walter would be my attorney and all hell would break loose with Taylor, as I imagined her and John Smith wanted to happily countersue me. If I didn't sign it, Taylor would get away scot-free and continue to mislead with her publicity stunts, harming myself and people like Max, the dying hospital boy. I was in a dilemma. Turning to my one friend who supported me the entire time, I made my way over to Ken's home. When I met with Ken, he looked a lot better than he had when I last saw him in the hospital months before. It was mid-February. Ken rested on his couch near his crackling fireplace, with obvious signs of trauma all over his body. We talked about Walter and the potential representation. There's no guarantee that the news is going to cover this fairly, Ken cautioned. We saw how that all went. Sitting silently, Ken gathered his thoughts. Russell, you have an inspiring story here. You're an underdog. Everybody loves underdog stories. Instead of spending your entire life in a courtroom battling Taylor Swift, write about it. Write a book about this entire incident. It's a modern-day David and Goliath story. I mean, it caused Taylor to release a song in an attempt to hide everything. That's huge. You could do more good with a book than another lawsuit will. Writing had always been my passion. I couldn't believe that I had never thought of writing the entire incident out. My thoughts turned away from suing Taylor Swift a second time to publishing a book about why I sued her. After all, nobody understood my cause of action. There's no guarantee that my second lawsuit would be covered fairly. As I developed the book idea more, I wanted the book to influence people and not just be an explainer sort of book. During my brainstorming, Walter would continue to call and email me, asking if I had made a decision. I wasn't sure how to tell him off, as I felt he wouldn't leave me alone, so I did the easiest thing I could do, and I blocked his number and email and never ever heard back from him.